Welcome one, welcome all. I'm Artris. Today, I'm bringing you the Kingdoms of Intrigue full set pre-release review. What I want to do with this video is to go through and kind of explain the process of what good deck building means when making a pre-release deck. A lot of people seem to struggle with this, myself included. However, I think going over what to look for and what cards could fit your deck well is important. So before we go any further, if you find anything in this video to be useful or helpful for your pre-release, please make sure to sub and like the video. It helps out a lot, and some time did go into making this, so I would really appreciate that. Thank you so much. All right off the bat, I want to get one thing out of the way before we even go into kind of like looking at the cards themselves. I want to go over a strategy or kind of like a mindset that I take when doing these limited events, whether it be with like Magic or One Piece. When evaluating cards for the deck, I go over a system called G.R.A.P.E. And with G.R.A.P.E, it's an acronym which kind of stands for a tier list of what you would want to try to put into your deck based off of the effects that the cards might have. So let's talk a little bit about what this means. First and foremost, the number one thing that you should be looking for are your bombs or your game winners. These cards are cards that will cause your opponent to lose the game pretty quickly if they don't handle the threat that's put onto the board. These kind of cards will swing the tempo and momentum back into your favor, or if you're already in the lead, kind of close out games. Some examples from previous sets might be the 9-cost Edward Newgate, which of course is a bomb so much of a bomb that got limited in OPO3, or even like the Odin 8-drop. These cards, once put on the field, are very hard for your opponent to take care of and could close out games very quickly. Next up on the tier list, I look for cards that might have removal. So cards that have removal can help answer some of the threats that your opponent has put on the board. Sometimes you don't want to have to swing into your opponent's threats. You might want to be able to kill something or bounce something back to hand, and that helps with the momentum in this game so much. Some examples of this from previous sets would be like this Poly from OPO3, which on play you pay 2 Dawn and you add 1 Dawn card from your Dawn deck set it is active, and then if you have 8 or more Dawn cards on your field, you can KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. So that's a great removal in the body itself, which is amazing. This card did wonders for me in my pre-release. Another example could be like Thunderbolt, although in Thunderbolt you do have to have the downside of taking a life. However, removal is removal, so look for cards like this when you're trying to go in and build a deck. Next up on the checklist of things to look for are cards that give you card advantage. These cards, simply put, will let you draw more cards. In a game where your hand is your most important resource and also pretty much is your life, getting more cards in your hand is better. One thing that I've noticed from playing a lot of pre-release is that your hand dwindles down really quickly if you're not careful. One of the strategies that I will often take is just take the first 2 or 3 hits so that I can amass more of a hand size and then kind of defend from there. But that's simply because I just like having a bigger hand size. So I look for cards that will let me either increase the size by playing them or just like have some kind of effect where I can cycle through my deck a little bit. Some examples of this from previous sets would be the 4-cost Kuzan, which on play will draw a card. It just replaces itself. Great card. Anything that you can put a body on the board and kind of apply pressure in some way and then also draw a card off of it is amazing to me. Another example would be like the Soga King from the last set, where on play, now this doesn't necessarily draw you cards in the sense of giving you a hand advantage, but it does let you cycle through your deck a little bit, which can be very important if you're looking for a certain card to play. Next up, I look for cards that will give me protection, and this is a very simple one as well. Cards that give you protection are either 2K counters or any kind of blockers. I think those are very valuable, and they help you stay alive and sustain your hand advantage. Just some quick examples of this would be like the 2-cost Pearl, which is a blocker from the last set, and then, of course, a 2K counter. You find many of these in different sets, but of course, Mr. Bon Clay is best boy, so I had to include him in this video, of course. And finally, once you've already kind of gone through that checklist of G.R.A.P.E, the rest of the cards you can just consider to put in your deck, whatever suits your fancy, whatever might fit your curve better, some good stat lines, whatever it may be, but this is the last thing you want to put in, just like anything else. Literally, the E stands for everything else here. So some examples of that could just be like 5-cost G.R.A.P.E. It's just a vanilla that has good stat lines, and it's a decent threat, right? It has a counter, and same thing with like Nemule. It's also a 3-drop for 5K. It can get free swings in. So yeah, overall, these cards are just whatever else you can fill your deck up with that makes sense for you. Also, really quickly, I want to go over the rating system here. So I'm going to be rating everything from S tier to F tier with A, B, and C in between. What does this mean? What am I looking for? What is the criteria for these different rankings? So S tier are all of your bombs. These are essentially what the G stands for in the G.R.A.P.E checklist. These cards will just win you the game. Once they're put on the field, your opponent has a hard time answering them, and oftentimes you can close out a game or at least flip it if you're behind. Next, we're looking at A tier, which is threats. These cards are really strong cards that you're going to want to include in your deck. They might not be as strong as a bomb, might not be able to close out a game, but if they're left unanswered, they can get you closer to victory. B tier cards are just good playable cards. Oftentimes, these cards could be just a flat vanilla, which has good stat lines. Good cards could also just kind of apply a little bit of pressure. They're not going to win you the game per se. They either help keep you afloat, or they can help you kind of put your foot on the gas if you want to start trying to get closer to ending games. Good cards are good cards. Next, for the C tier, these cards are just playable. Now, you're not going to want to auto-include these cards in your deck when you come across them. You can definitely put them to the side and make them considerable cards, like, oh, maybe I could fit this in if I'm running out of room. Oftentimes, they aren't going to really help you put a lot of pressure on the opponent, but maybe they can help you out early game, or maybe they fit a certain play style or a certain leader. So they're not all-encompassing. They might be a little bit too niche for what they have. So it can fit a lot of things here in playable. And then finally, we have F, which are just the duds. These are cards you don't want to play at all. Please don't put them in your deck. Even if you have room to add maybe 1 or 2 more cards, please consider something else. These are what these cards are. With that being said, let's go over the actual cards themselves and kind of go over why I think these cards are good for your deck, or maybe they're bad if you come across them. All right, first off, we have a set of 5 cards, which is going to be like reprints, alt arts that are unique to this set. So we've already seen these cards in previous sets, so they kind of already off the bat are a little bit stronger, just because they are going to be picking some of the better ones to put here. So first off, we have the 5-cost Blocker Law. Of course, this card is a menace in standard, or constructed rather, but in a pre-release, it is fine. It's a good, solid card. It has blocker, which is great for what it is, and then also can cycle a card if you want to like get value off of it or return something back to your hand. I'm gonna say that this is probably a solid B, maybe an A. I might put it on like an A tier, just because it can be a threat. It does help protect you, and it has some kind of value, which is pretty cool on the fact that you can cycle something or return something to your hand. Overall, yeah, this is an A tier. Next up, we have Boa Hancock, a very solid blocker, which will draw you a card on block if you have 5 or less cards. You probably are in a limited format like this. You will have fewer cards in hand, so you're probably going to be able to pull the effect off. It's a solid 1K at worst, so I would say that this is a B card. The only reason that it's not an A here is just because it's not like a huge threat. It's a very solid card. You'd love to see it. It draws you cards. It gives you advantage. Yeah, overall B. Of course, Edward Newgate, I'm going to put it S tier, easy S. When you throw this card down, it just gives you so much advantage, and the tempo goes back into your favor if you were behind. So yeah, this card is amazing. It can pop blockers or little weenies. Who doesn't love popping a little weenie, you know? So, okay, I'm going to put this in an S tier and then just move on. Magellan, the 5-cost purple one, is not amazing. I'm going to say that this card is on the lower end of B for what it is. Actually, it might just be playable, to be honest, because the reason it's a good card in the fact that it has an okay stat line. You play it for 5, you get a 6K body. However, it doesn't have a counter, so it's kind of dead in hand at times. And in pre-release, you kind of don't care what your opponent's doing with their Dawn. You don't really know what they're doing with their Dawn. So the effect of kind of okay, you kill this and now you have to return 2 Dawn. I don't really know if that's amazing for a pre-release. It could be. It could be good. I'm going to put it on the lower end of B, maybe a C. It's playable. It's playable, but it's not amazing. I think Sakazuki's a really good card. However, there's a huge disadvantage here. With Sakazuki, you're going to have to get rid of a card in hand to KO something on the field. You don't have a lot of minusing effects, so what you're killing is probably going to be a 5-cost, which is still probably going to be a decent threat. The situation for which you could play this is pretty wide, so I'm going to put this card at a solid A. It's a really strong threat, a nice 7K swing every turn, and it can also get rid of something on your opponent's side of the board. Okay, so for the rest of the cards in the set, we're going to be having brand new cards that we haven't seen before. You'll definitely come across these more often than the alt arts that I just showed, but it's still worth going over it. First off, we have the VV leader. I'm going to put this actually at playable simply because you can use the effect to kind of get like a little bit of an advantage going. Maybe defend with the cards that you're drawing. Also, towards the end game, when you're trying to maybe go for game, this leader effect could come in handy by giving something rush when your opponent might not have cards in hand. So I can see this being playable. I don't see it as a good playable. I see it as just something that maybe somebody could try out when they're feeling spicy and maybe could make it work. The big disadvantage here is that it cannot attack. So I'm going to put this at C tier. Next, we have G.R.A.P.E. Activate main. You may rest this character and give one of your active leader minus 5,000 power during this turn. Off the bat, this is an F tier card. I don't need to read the rest of the effect to see that. The fact that you give your active leader minus 5,000 power is pretty silly, simply because you're not going to want to not have an attack with your leader, unless, of course, you're playing, like I said, VV, or maybe another like leader that can't attack. I think there's like a few more of them. There's Rebecca, and then what was the Water 7 one, the purple one that nobody ever played the set? Gosh, what was his name? I'm actually blanking on this. Holy shit, I have to look this up now. Oh my god. Iceberg. Yeah, so Iceberg, if you want to play Iceberg for whatever godforsaken reason, that would work out here, I guess. Next up, we have Usopp. He is a 4-cost 5k body that on KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 5k power or less. I'm going to put this at a solid B. It's a really good card in the sense that it can you throw it down and it can do its own thing. Your opponent's not going to be really wanting to swing into it because maybe they don't want to get rid of something on the board, although they could swing into it first and then play something. So I'm still going to say it's a B tier card because it does have good value. It can either be used as a counter or you swing as 5. Karoo, activate main. You may rest this character. Give up to 1 rested Dawn to each of your Alabasta type characters. I'm going to say this is an F tier. I don't think you're going to be able to play this. There's maybe some small chance if you are running Zoro and you're just going like a weenie build. However, this is still probably not a card you would want to put into that. So I'm going to say that this is an F tier. You're not going to be playing Alabasta. It's too restricted. Kung Fu Jugon, love the art here, but unfortunately, because this card is a situational blocker, and the situation is you need multiple copies of this on the field, I'm going to say that this is an F tier. Sorry, I really wish it was better. Next, we have Koza, 3-drop for 3k. When attacking, you may give your active leader minus 5,000 power. Once again, if you're not playing VV, Iceberg, or Rebecca, these kind of cards, never going to put them in your deck. However, there is one situation that I just noticed. It's a 2k counter, so you're going to always put this one in your deck. So actually, before I say it's an F tier, it's a playable card in the sense that it is a 2k, so it is playable. You should add this to your deck if you see it. Next up, we have Sanji, the 1-drop for 3k. If you're playing Zoro, this is a good card. However, if you're playing other leaders, this is probably not the pick for you, simply because you don't want to have to spend 2 Dawn to make this be able to swing into a leader. So I'm going to put this at playable, however, not advisable. Chaka for 3 at 5k body, Dawn times 1 when attacking. If your leader is VV, give up to one of your opponent's characters minus 3,000 power during this turn, then KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a 0 power or less. I think that this is just okay. The fact that it's like leader locked is a problem. I think the other thing that you might not want to play this card for is because it doesn't have a counter. That's very important in this game, having counters, or at least in the pre-release. I would say that this is at the very bottom of C tier if I had to put it somewhere. It's a playable because it's a 3. It's basically a 3 for 5 vanilla stat line. It's fine. You're not going to get any of the effect though, and it could be dead in hand. Just keep that in mind. Next, we have the Super Spot build Duck Troops. This card, when attacking, you may give your active leader minus 5,000 power. Return this character to the owner's hand at the end of the turn. Kind of weird. If it's not a 2k, which it is a 2k, then you would not want this. So yeah, if you see this, put it in your deck. I think the moral of the story, real fast though, is before I review this Tony Chopper, is that if you see a 2k, just put it in your deck. There's no reason not to. All right, on to Tony Chopper. On play up to 1 animal type character with 3,000 power or less from your hand. It is a 3 cost for 4k body. The stat line, not amazing. It's okay in Zoro, but it's barely playable. You're not going to really get the effect off much. It's not F tier per se, but it's not really... I don't know if it's playable. I wouldn't put it F tier, though. I'd put it probably C. Nami is a 2-cost, 3,000 power body. When attacking, reveal one card from the top of your deck. If the revealed card is a character with 6,000 power or more, this character gains plus 3,000 power during this turn. Then place the revealed card at the bottom of the deck. This is such a weird card for a pre-release format in the sense that you see something that is powerful and then you bottom deck it. So it's like, hey, this is what you could have drawn next turn, but you know what? Instead, you get a 6k body. How about that? Don't put it in your deck. F tier. You have Cobra here, which is a 2-Dawn 0k body. Your turn, all of your Alabasta type characters other than this character gain 1,000 power. It's a very specific ability to give to characters you might have. If you get enough Alabasta characters, this might be okay because it's a pseudo blocker. It could be decent in Zoro, right? If you're building a Zoro deck and then you kind of like give everything 1,000 already, and then maybe you're going like Alabasta type, then you could give another 1,000 to everything. But it's very situational. It's barely a playable. Only if you get Alabasta type characters and only if you get a fair amount of them. I would say like 10, then maybe this is okay. Pell is a 5-Dawn 6k body with Dawn ×1 when attacking, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 4,000 power or less. I think this is an A tier card. It is a threat. It starts picking off your opponent's characters. It could take out blockers. I think this is a threat. A tier, easy A tier. What's even better than that card, though, in my opinion, is this 8-drop 9k Luffy, which has Banish on it. Sure, this might not seem like a great card at first because it doesn't have counter on it, and it seems a little bit underwhelming for what maybe something in red could be. However, nobody's going to be able to take care of this with anything that's out on the field. The only way that this card can be answered really is either attacking into it or by having Red Rock. So you're going to probably not have Red Rock, and you're probably going to have to attack into this, which is not warranted. It's going to be chipping away at your life once per turn, and you're not going to get that card in hand. This card is an easy A simply because of the Banish. Next, we have Zoro, a 5-Dawn 6k body. On play, give up to one of your opponent's characters minus 2,000 power during this turn. This card is actually a pretty good card because the effect happens immediately, and you can use it on something to minus it by 2,000 and swing into it with a character that's already out on the field. I think this is a really good card. So I'm going to put it at good. I don't think this is an A tier card because it's not a huge threat. However, this card is very good and it can help swing the momentum into your favor if you're running a little bit behind and you need to swing into an opponent's character. If your opponent has a lot on board and they have something rested, this is perfect. So yeah, I'm going to put this as a B tier. Next, we have the first of the events for Red, Bad Manners Kick Course. Red is getting their first plus 3,000 power, 0-cost event card. This is going to be good because it can get some of the dead cards out of your hand. I'm going to put this at a B tier. It's a good card. I would put it in your deck. Next, we have the 1-cost event for Happiness Punch. I think this card is okay. Give up to one of your opponent's leader or character cards minus 2,000 power during this turn. You can get that effect for 1 Dawn, right? That's fine. It's basically a 1 Dawn 2k counter. Then, if your leader is active, give up to one of your opponent's leader or character cards minus 1,000 power during this turn. It's definitely good in the leader decks that can't attack. You're not really ever going to get the second effect. You're just going to be getting the first effect. It's playable. If you're able to activate the second effect, then yes, this card would probably be moved up to a good card for that leader. However, it's just a C tier, simply because you can only get 1/2 of it. And then finally, for the red cards, we have Enchanting Vertigo Dance. Main for 3. If your leader has the Alabasta type, give up to 2 of your opponent's characters minus 2,000 power during this turn. I'm going to put this at F. You're probably not going to be playing an Alabasta type leader. If you are, still, this is not really that worth it in my opinion. So I'm going to say F tier. You're not going to play this card. Don't put it in your deck. Next, we have Don Quixote, Don Flamingo, the leader, which will end of your turn set up to 2 of your Dawn cards as active. I'm going to put it at C tier. Even though I started off saying it was a good card, it is still a good card. However, it's really good if you're able to get a lot of events. I don't know if you're going to be able to get a lot. It's not guaranteed, right? So based off of that, you have to take the positive with the negative. If you are high rolling and you gotta get a lot of events, this leader is good. If you're not, it's kind of useless. Like, what's the point of the 2 Dawn as active other than the mind game for your opponent? So I'm gonna put it at playable, but it is definitely more playable, I would say, than some of the other leaders. I think Isho is actually the leader from this set that is the most playable, I would say it's a good card. Dawn ×1 on your turn, give all of your opponent's characters -1 cost. That's not really going to matter that much, to be honest, but the second effect is really good. At the end of your turn, you can pay 1 to set up to one of your characters with the cost 5 or less as active, which means that you can safely attack into your opponent and then restand that character, or use that if there's a card that taps for an effect, you can use it again, kind of thing. So yeah, I'd say this is a good card. I'm going to put it at B. What's holding it back from being a better tier is just the 4 life. Next up, we have Viola. She is a 3 Dawn, 3k body. On your opponent's attack, you may pay 2 Dawn and rest up to one of your opponent's Dawn cards. It is it's kind of a strange card. I don't think you'd ever play it, but you would add it to your deck because it is a 2k counter. So it is playable because it's a 2k counter. You could put it on the field, but I don't think you're going to want to spend your Dawn doing that stuff. We have Eric, which is a 1 cost, 2k body. Activate main, you may rest this character. Rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 1 or less. No, it's actually not playable. Don't put this in your deck. It's an F tier. I had myself almost tricked for a second. This is an F tier for sure. Don't put it in your deck unless there's a lot of 1-drop blockers, which I don't think there are. So even then, it's playable if it was, but no, don't put it in your deck. F tier. Kuro is I'm going to put this at an A tier. I think this is an A tier card because it is a threat. You're going to start chipping away at your opponent's life every turn with this card. It's going to be really hard for somebody to remove this. In a constructed format, this card is probably not ever going to be close to an A. However, because there's not a lot that can handle this card, I'm actually putting it at an A tier. Any kind of vanilla body that is an 8k is amazing, right? 6-drop 8k. This is a Thatch for green. Love to see it. This is an auto include in all of my decks if I come across it. Next, we have Sugar. She is a 2-drop 0k body with, on your opponent's turn, once per turn, when your opponent plays a character, if your leader has the Don Quixote Pirates type, rest up to one of your opponent's characters, then rest this character. This card is not amazing, but it is playable because it is essentially, if you look at it this way, it has the cost of a Cat Viper, but the effect of an Ezo. So I will take that. If I see it, I will put it to the side and maybe consider it. So I will put it at playable. Next, we have Giola. Giola is a 4-cost, 4k body. On your opponent's attack, pay 2 Dawn and rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. This is a Punk Gibson on a body, but without the plus 4k. I would honestly probably not play this ever. If I really needed something to play, I might put it in the deck. It's playable. It's very bottom of C tier. Like I said at the beginning of this video, there's going to be a lot of B and C, and this is definitely a playable card, but would I want to play it? Probably not. Next up, we have a 3-drop 5k body in Senor Pink. When attacking, you may pay 1 Dawn. If your leader has the Don Quixote type pirates, rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less, then set up to one of your Dawn cards as active at the end of the turn. The effect is not likely ever going to be pulled off, so I'm going to put this at playable simply because it's a 3-drop 5k body, so you're going to probably want to include this if you don't have anything else because it can swing on its own. You don't have to invest Dawn into it once you play it. If you're going first, it hits a curve. It's okay. It's a playable card towards the higher end of playable. Not good, though. Not quite good. Daddy Masterson is a 4-drop 5k body with Dawn ×1, end of your turn. Set this card as active. So it's essentially like the Blocker Kid from the starter deck, however, with less stats. I would say that this is actually a good card. You just use it as a threat that they can't attack into. But I'd say because of that, it's a B tier. I would include it if I saw it. Diamante, which is a 5-drop 6k blocker. Dawn ×1, end of your turn. If you have 2 or more active Dawn, set this character as active. You're likely not going to be able to do that or would want to do that per se. If there are opportunities for you to do that, you could use the effect like the second one. However, because it is a 6k blocker, I will put this at a good card. I would put this card at a high B tier simply because it can swing into your opponent, but also it protects you pretty well. It causes your opponent to put 1 extra Dawn on their leader if they want to be able to swing into you. So yeah, because the fact it taxes, I'm going to put this at a high B tier. We have Dellinger, which is a 4K for 3. End of your turn, set up to one of your Dawn cards is active. I don't see this really being a good card. It's not really playable either. There's better playables. I'm going to put it at F tier. Don't put this in your deck. It's fine. You don't need it. It's not going to help you that much. It's too specific of something that you're not going to need. We have Treble, which is a 6K for 6. On play, KO up to one of your opponent's rested characters with a cost of 5 or less. I would say that off the bat is a good stat. Like, being able to KO something has removal on a body, and then on your opponent's attack, it has more. You may pay 2 and rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. This is a threat. I actually think this is a threat. You KO something on play for free. Like, your opponent's, yes, granted, your opponent's character has to be rested. However, this is a 6-drop. So that means that anything that swung into you with 5, you can just save it and then pop into it. It's a really good effect. I actually think you're going to be able to get the first effect off a lot. So because of that, I am putting it at A tier. It's a threat because it kills something on the board. It has a good body. And on top of that, if you leave Dawn up, you can rest your opponent's like blockers. You can rest something that might be a threat that could swing into you. Your opponent has to think differently on how they want to attack because this card exists. Next up, we have the big boss monster for green for this set, which is the Don Quixote do Flamingo 10-drop. It's a 10k body for 10. So yes, all 10 of your Dawn go into this. However, on play, up to a total of 3 of your opponent's rested leader and character cards will not become active in your opponent's next refresh phase. That is huge. That means 3 things that swung at you can no longer swing at you for an entire turn. This is an S tier card because it's just like, what the hell? Like, this card being able to stop a kid from swinging twice for a turn. It allows you to swing into those characters if you so choose, and then start getting cards out of the opponent's hand. And then after your opponent untaps, now they have to deal with the 10-drop. This is an S tier card. This is a bomb. Get it. Put it in your deck. Hope that you get this. Baby 5, a 1-drop for 1k body. End of your turn, you may trash this character. Set up to 2 of your Dawn cards as active. The effect you don't want, the only thing you want this for is the 2k counter on the side. We have Mock Vice, probably said that wrong. On play, if your leader has the Don Quixote Pirates type, rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. Then set up to one of your Dawn cards as active at the end of this turn. With this card, you're hardly going to be able to get the effect off, and the stat lines are okay. A 4-drop is typically, if you're going to play a vanilla of a 4-drop, it's going to be like a 6k. However, it's playable. I would put this at C tier, has a counter. It's not the worst card in the world, and also, you got feet picks for free, so, I mean, can you complain? Next, we have Lao G, the same stat lines that we just saw, a 4-drop for 5k body. However, with this card, at the end of your turn, if you have 3 or more active Dawn cards, KO up to one of your opponent's rested characters with the cost of 3 or less. Probably don't want to use this for that. You're not going to ever use that effect. Along with the last card, it's playable. It's a C tier just because of the stat line, and it has a 1k counter. For the first of the green events, we have a 2-cost event called Spiderweb, which up to one of your leader or character cards gains plus 4,000 power during this turn, so Punk Gibson essentially. Then set up to one of your characters as active, so reverse Punk Gibson. So basically this card can protect your stuff and also restand something. I think this is a really strong card. I'm going to put this at a B tier. It's a good card. It's not a threat. However, this card helps out a lot. You're going to want to put this in your deck if you see it. It's probably one of the best counters in this set, to be honest. Next, we have a 1-drop. Next, we have a 1-cost counter. Look at 5 cards from the top of your deck, reveal it to one of the Don Quixote type Pirates card, and add it to your hand, then place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. This is your searcher for constructed. You're not going to play this. F tier. The trigger, activate this card's counter effect, which is just activate it. It's F tier. Don't do it. Also, I just noticed this. It's a counter effect, so even in constructed, this is kind of strange. I thought it was like activate main. I just noticed that. That's kind of weird. Yeah, this is F tier for sure. Next, we have the 2-cost event Flapping Thread, which is a counter if your leader has the Don Quixote type Pirates. Up to one of your leader or character cards gains 2,000 power during this turn, and the trigger is KO up to one of your opponent's rested characters with the cost of 4 or less. This is barely playable. I could see some people trying to do the trigger effect. However, that's a high risk for not a huge reward. So I'm gonna put this at F tier. You're not gonna want this unless maybe you're running the green purple Dofi. And then finally, for all of the event cards for green, we have the weak do not have the right to choose how they die. Wow, that is a long title, and its effect for that is 5 cost, main or counter, rest up to one of your opponent's leader or character cards. Then KO up to one of your opponent's rested characters with a cost of 6 or less. It's a very interesting removal. I could see this actually might working a little bit. How the triggers really troll as well. It's like set up to 5 of your Dawn cards as active. What? That's so that's absurd. However, you might be able to use the actual main effect more. So I could see it being a playable. It's like a C tier card, but I would likely not want to put this in my deck. Going into blue, we have a leader with Rebecca in blue and black. This leader is a 5k leader, cannot attack. Card is activate main once per turn. You may rest 1 Dawn, and if you have 6 or less cards in your hand, look at 2 cards from the top of your deck, reveal up to 1 Dressrosa type card and add it to your hand, then trash the rest. I would say that this is not a playable leader. Simply because you cannot attack and you're not really getting anything. It's too niche. You're having to look for Dressrosa type cards. I don't think this leader is worth running, so I'm going to put it in the F tier, which is a little bit funny because this is one of the better leaders coming out of this set. Next, we have the other blue leader, which is in blue and yellow with Queen for 4 life, 5k body that can attack. Dawn ×1 when attacking. If you have a total of 4 or less cards in your life area and hand, draw 1 card. If you have a character with a cost of 8 or more, you may add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life cards instead of drawing 1 card. That was a mouthful of an effect. However, you're not going to be wanting to even play this simply because it's requiring you to have not a lot of cards in hand and also not a lot of life. So that's a very dangerous position to be in. And I think the effect of having being able to draw a card from that is not great for the small payoff, and instead having an 8 cost on the board is a little bit harder to do for that effect. So I'm going to put this at F tier. Next up, we have a Piss. Is that actually this card's name? Well, on play, you may trash 2 cards from your hand, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 East Blue type card and add it to your hand, then place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. It's a 1-cost searcher. I would say add this to your deck simply because it's a 2k. If you're going East Blue, even better. I don't know how much support is in East Blue in this set. Probably not a lot, but at the very least, it's 2k. I'm going to put all of the 2ks at C simply because they are playable. You're going to want to include it. It's not good enough to be a good card because it's a 2k at the end of the day, but always, always, always include 2ks. Always if you can. Any 2ks, I'm going to say this probably a few more times in this video. Grab as many 2ks as you can. They're playable cards simply because they're 2ks. Next up, we have Ippon Matsu, which is a 2-cost 1k body. On play, up to one of your slash attribute characters gains plus 3,000 power during this turn. Then trash 1 card from the top of your deck. F. Don't want this. Don't play it. Too specific. Kind of weird. Next up, we have Ulti, which is a 3-drop for 4k body. Dawn ×1 when attacking. Return up to 1 character with a cost of 2 or less to the owner's hand or the bottom of their deck. I actually think this is a good card. I'm going to put it in the B tier. Once you put a Dawn on it, you're able to return something to their hand, which it doesn't specify your opponent. It says the owner's hand. So maybe you want to return something back to your hand. That could be something that you could do. And it's for 1 Dawn. Your opponent might feel a little threatened with it. So you're automatically going to use the effect and get a 5k swing. And they could probably just attack into it the next turn. So it could act as a pseudo blocker. So yeah, ultimately, I think this is a good card. Next up, we have the Bomb in blue, which is the 10-cost 12k body of Kaido. On play, return up to 1 character with a cost of 8 or less and up to 1 character with a cost of 3 or less to the owner's hand. This is an S tier bomb. It is crazy what it does. It's never, ever, ever leaving the board unless there's a red rock. It's a 10-drop, so you're using all of your Dawn. However, you are gaining so much momentum by doing this. Your opponent might have a threat on the board that's 8 cost. They might have some like small threat, and it gets rid of both of those in a turn and puts a 12k body on the board. This is an S tier. You hope and pray that you get this card because, wow, this is a good one. We have King, which is a 7-cost 8k body. On play, draw 1 card. This is an A tier card for me. I think this card is really strong. Of course, drawing a card is amazing. That is the most important thing in a card game, is being able to draw cards, and this card allows you to do it while also putting a huge threat on the board. It's disgusting. An 8K body is just like, if I see that come down, I am crying. I'm sad. I don't want to go against that. If I see it on my side of the field, I'm happy. I don't know. Something about 8K bodies, and maybe it's the Whitebeard player in me because I see Thatch so often. I love 8K bodies. They are just so good. They are so good. Next, we have Queen, which Queen is a 4-cost 5K body, which on play, if your leader has the Animal Kingdom Pirates type, look at 7 cards from the top of your deck, reveal a total of up to 2 Playgrounds or Ice Oni cards, and add them to your hand. Then place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. I think we're seeing a theme of cards that are 4-cost 5K bodies that have absolutely useless effects. It is a playable card, but I don't think I would necessarily want to run it off the bat. I would put it off to the side, and then if I'm looking for spots to fill, probably put this in. Next, we have Ice Oni, which it's an 8-cost 0K body. It's very strange, but at the so the effect is your turn at the end of a battle in which this character battles your opponent's character with a cost of 5 or less. Place the opponent's character you battled with at the bottom of the owner's deck. This is garbage. Are you kidding me? This is an F tier. Absolutely no way to play this. Do not. Next, we have Sasaki, which is a 3-cost 4K body. On play, return all the cards in your hand to your deck and shuffle your deck. Then draw cards equal to the number you returned to your deck. I'm going to put this at a good card. It's a 2K plus if you are looking for something specific or you just don't like your hand after mulliganing. This card can help you at least see a fresh 4 or 5, you know? I think this is fine. I think you want to include this if you can, obviously for the 2K, but you might actually get some value off of playing it. So I'm going to put it at a B. It's a good card. Next, we have Jack, which is a 2-cost 3K body. On KO, draw 1 card. I don't think this card is that good. It's playable, maybe in a Zoro deck, but the issue here is your opponent will just never attack into it. And so you're just not going to ever be able to draw a card off of it. So yeah, I'm going to put it at C, but probably see you later. Next, we have Hanger, a 0K body for 2. Activate main. You may trash 1 card from your hand and rest this character, draw 1 card. I could see this being a playable card, like an actual playable card. It might actually even be good. I'm going to put it in a B tier, and here's my reasoning. You actually use this as a blocker. So if you're going second, you play this down, you just instantly use the effect, and you cycle a card. You just toss the worst card in your hand, and you draw 1. And next turn, your opponent has to swing into it, or you do it again. I think this is a B tier card. It's good. I'm going to include this in my deck if I find it. Next, we have Who's Who, which is a 1-cost 2K body. On play, look at 5 cards from the top of your deck. Reveal up to 1 Animal Kingdom's Pirates type, other than Who's Who, and add it to your hand. Then place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. This is your searcher for basically blue-purple Kaido. I don't think this card is usable in a limited format such as pre-release, so I'm going to put this at an F tier. Next up, we have Black Maria, which is a 3K body for 3. Activate main. You may pay 2 Dawn and rest this character, draw 1 card. I would put this at playable. The fact you have to spend Dawn afterwards to draw a card kind of sucks, as opposed to like Hanger, where you can do it for free every turn. You know what? I'm changing my mind. This is a B tier card. Anytime you do this, you're instantly soaking up damage. They're always going to attack into it. So it's kind of a blocker that draws you a card for a little extra Dawn. I'm going to put it at B tier. Yeah, actually, I changed my mind. Page 1, a 4-cost 6K body. Dawn times 1 once per turn. When you activate an event, draw 1 card. Then place 1 card from your hand at the bottom of your deck. You're not going to get the effect off. However, it is a 6K body for 4. So it's a good stat line. If you're going second, you throw this down, and it's just like, what does your opponent do? Your opponent now has to answer this the next turn if they can. So yeah, I'd say it's a good card overall. I'm going to put this at a B tier. Roki is a 5-cost 7K body vanilla. This is instantly just a good card. Put it in your deck if you see it. It's a B tier card for me. It has a counter on it, which makes it even better than the last card we saw. However, this card has better stat lines, and you play it going first on curve, and it's wow. What do you get? What is your opponent just like has to get rid of 2 cards every turn or take a life, yeah, this is a B tier card. Next, we have Playgrounds, which is a 2-cost event. Main, you may trash 1 Ice Oni from your hand and place 1 character with a cost of 4 or less at the bottom of the owner's deck. Play 1 Ice Oni from your trash. Nah, that's an F for me. Gum Gum Red Rock. Main, place up to 1 character at the bottom of the owner's deck. It's a 6-cost event. And also has a trigger which says place up to 1 character with a cost of 4 or less at the bottom of the owner's deck. This card is an A tier card for me. It's an A tier event. This is the best event in the whole entire series of One Piece card game up to date. I think this card, I'm overvaluing it, of course, probably a little bit, but I think this card is amazing. It gets rid of any threat your opponent throws down for 6, right? Which is nice. You still have 4 Dawn to play with, essentially. And then it also has a trigger which can get rid of a card or a threat on the field. So yeah, it's an unconditional removal. And if you get it, put it in your deck. And then for the last blue event, we have Dragon Twister Demolition Breath. This is a 2-cost counter. Up to 1 of your leader or character cards gains plus 4,000 power during this battle. Then place up to 1 character with a cost of 1 or less at the bottom of the owner's deck. I'm going to say that this is actually a decent B card. It is a 2-cost counter event, which gives your leader or character plus 4,000 power. So your typical 2-cost event. The second half of it is an added bonus. If there's like something on the field you want to get rid of, you can use it. It's not like, oh my gosh, this is what's selling me on it. What's really selling me on it is the trigger. Return up to 1 character with a cost of 6 or less to the owner's hand. This is really strong. It also, if it's sitting in life, it instantly swings the momentum away from your opponent. So I would say that this is actually a really strong, good B tier card. I wouldn't say it's quite an A because obviously Red Rock holds that. But there are some good blue events this set. So yeah, grab this if you can. Going into purple, we have Croc with purple and yellow. He's a 4-life leader that has a 5k attack. On your opponent's turn, once per turn, when a Dawn card on your field is returned to your Dawn deck by your effect, add up to 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck and set it as active. I would say in a pre-release event, this leader might not see that effect happen very often. I don't think you would want to play this. There's not really a reason to. It's playable though. So yeah, I mean, it's okay. Next, we have Iceberg, which is a 1-cost 0k body. On your opponent's attack, Dawn -1. So you return 1 back to your Dawn deck. If your leader has the Water 7 type, which probably doesn't, this character gains blocker during this turn. Yeah, this is an F tier. God, what is with Iceberg being F tier, man? All right, we have 8-cost 9k body Crocodile. On play, Dawn -2. If your leader's type includes Baroque Works, add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life cards. And then on your opponent's attack, once per turn, Dawn -1, draw 1 card and trash 1 card from your hand. I'm actually going to put this card in A tier. I'm not putting it in a bomb quite yet. It doesn't affect the board when it comes out to play, which is a big reason why I think some bombs are bombs. So that's why the Doflamingo 10-drop and the Kaido 10-drop are bombs to me, because they affect the board the turn they come out. This is a really big threat. If it hits the board, a 9k swing every turn is going to connect unless you have blockers, or get a lot of cards out of hand, which you're not going to want to do. However, the on-play effect here is not really relevant. You're not going to be using it because you're not going to have enough Baroque Works, or you're probably not going to be running a Baroque Works leader. If you are, awesome for you. On your opponent's attack, though, this is a really good effect. You draw 1 card and trash 1 card from your hand by minusing 1 Dawn. Minusing 1 Dawn for this effect is awesome. I love seeing that. You get to cycle your deck once per turn whenever your opponent attacks. Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. This is a threat. I'm going to put it at A tier. Next, we have Tom, which is a 3-cost for 4k body. Activate main. You may trash this character. If your leader has the Water 7 type, add it to 1 Dawn card from your Dawn deck and rest it. This is an F tier. You're not going to play it. I know I've put other 3-cost at 4 at probably like C. You're never, ever going to use the effect here and get a 5k body for 3 somewhere else rather than a 4k body for 3. So yeah, Zoro might use this, but I'm putting it at F. Banana Gator is one of my favorite cards in this set simply because the artwork just pops out at me. Love it. It's amazing. And on top of that, this card is a card that I want to draft. If I see it in my sealed packs. I am putting this in a deck because it is a 5-cost 7k body. It's a huge threat, has a counter. You play it on curve, just like all the other vanillas that have been 5-cost for 7k body. Yeah, it's amazing. I'm gonna put it at a good card. It's a B tier card. Frankie is a 1-cost 1k body on your opponent's attack once per turn, Dawn -1. If your leader has the Water 7 type, up to one of your leader or character cards gains 1000 power during this battle. F tier, you're not running Water 7, don't think about it. We have Miss All Sunday, which is a 5k for 5. On play, add up to 1 Dawn card from your Dawn deck and rest it. Then, if you have 6 or more Dawn cards on your field, draw 1 card. This is a really good card. This is a strong B. It's not quite a threat enough to be an A. It does also have an effect on trigger, which Dawn -2, you can play the card. I'm going to say that this is an auto include if I see it. It's not a threat, but it is a really good card. So it's a strong B for me. We have Miss Golden Week, which is a 2-cost for 3k body. On play, if your leader's type includes Baroque Works, up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less cannot attack until the start of your next turn. If you're running Baroque Works, this works well. However, if you're not, what's the point? It is not playable. I'm going to put it at F. Miss Valentine is on play for 2, which is a 2k body. Look at 5 cards from the top of your deck. Reveal up to 1 card with a type including Baroque Works and add it to your hand, then place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. The trigger is Dawn -1. You can play this card. You're not really considering Baroque Works, are you? If you are, maybe reconsider. This is an F tier. Miss Merry Christmas, a 4-cost 4k body blocker. Trigger Dawn -1, play this card. This is a really good card. It's a blocker that doesn't get popped by if your opponent has Newgate, for instance. It's a blocker that you can trigger from life with not having to ditch anything from hand. Yeah, I'm going to put this at B tier. I hope that I get this card. It's kind of cool. Next, we have a Yokozuna, which is a 3k body for 3. It has blocker and Dawn -1 on your opponent's attack. Return up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 2 or less to the owner's hand. I say this is a good card. It has blocker, which I love. And it's a frog. Look at this guy. On top of that, it does have a secondary effect that could come in handy. I don't think it will come in handy often, but it might. So because it might, I'm going to put it at B tier. It's a good card. Mr. 2 Bond Clay. We have on your opponent's attack, Dawn -1. This character's base power becomes the same as the power of your opponent's attacking leader or character during this turn. See, this is a really interesting one. So I completely shit on a 3-cost for 4k body earlier that I think it was like Tom that like had a really bad effect. This one is actually a decent effect where if your opponent swings into this, you can use the effect to kind of like waste their time and only use a 1k to serve. Like you're basically ditching a 1k to keep this alive, which is kind of cool. Also, the flavor text is kind of a win here. So the trigger is Dawn -1, play this card. So you can easily get this on the field without having to invest the Dawn. I actually think, I'm kind of hesitant, but I actually think this card is a B tier. It's a good card. Next, we have Mr. 3 Galdino. It is a 4k body for 3. On your opponent's attack, once per turn, Dawn -1. Give up to one of your opponent's characters -1000 power during this turn. I'd say this is a playable card. It has an okay effect, and the stat line's not amazing. Once again, I'm not a huge fan of 4k bodies for 3. I'd rather just get a 5k body for 3 at that point. It is a playable card, so I'm going to put it at C. Next, we have Mr. 4. Mr. 4, on your opponent's attack, Dawn -1. This character gains blocker and plus 1000 power during this battle. This is a 5-cost 6k body. If I'm reading that correctly, on your opponent's attack, so when your opponent declares an attack, you -1 Dawn, and then you can use this as a blocker. And it says during this battle, so I would assume, it doesn't say during this turn, it says during this battle, which means that this does become a blocker you can use immediately. It's interesting. I think that's a good card because it's a 7k blocker, essentially. Your opponent has to respect that. Yeah, I think this is a good card. I'm going to put it B tier. Mr. 5. It's an 8k body for 7. On your opponent's attack, once per turn, Dawn -2. You may rest to this character, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. This is an interesting card in the sense that it is an 8k body. Love seeing that. 4/7 is a little steep. And on your opponent's attack, you have to rest this character, so that means you don't attack with it. It's kind of weird because you're going to want to attack with it. The only time that you might use this effect efficiently is the turn you play it down. Yeah, actually, I think this is a good card because of that. You would only get the effect off once, and then it's just an 8k swing every time after that. So yeah, it's a good card, B tier. Next, we have Mr. 13 and Miss Friday. For a 1k body for 3, activate main, you may trash this character and add one of your characters with a type, including Baroque Works. Add up to 1 Dawn card from your Dawn deck and set it as active. Not playing it for the effect, you're playing it because it's a 2k. It is a C, playable, on to the next. Colors Trap, which is a 1-cost event. It is a counter, Dawn -1, up to one of your leader or character cards gains 1000 power during this battle, then rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. I think this is playable. I think it might even be good. It is a 1k event counter, which is not great. However, it lets you rest your opponent's character of 4 or less. And also its trigger allows you to ramp if it comes out of life. I think this is decent. I think it's playable. I don't know if I necessarily would love to play it, but if I'm looking for cards to add towards the end, I might add it in just for the trigger and also resting a character. So C, playable. Nez Palm Cannon, which is a 3-cost event. It has a counter of up to one of your leader or character cards gains plus 6,000 power during this battle. Then if you have 2 or less life cards, add up to 1 Dawn card from your Dawn deck and rest it. Add up to 1 Dawn card from your Dawn deck and set it as active, so it allows you to ramp. I'm going to say that this is I think this is a good card. People don't respect the 3-cost event counters enough, and it's really hard to gauge if your opponent has it or not. And the effect allows you to ramp. So yeah, I think I'm going to put this at a lower end of B. It definitely helps you protect your characters or either your leader, and the trigger might be useful. We have the Weakness is an Unforgivable Sin 1-cost event. Counter, Dawn -1, up to one of your leader or character cards gains 1000 power during this turn, and then trigger, add it to 1 Dawn card from your Dawn deck and set it as active. This is not very playable. I'm going to put it at F tier. It's a 1-cost, 1k power event card. Not great. There's no real upside to using this, so no, don't do it. Try the other one if you get the other purple event. On to black, we have Ideo. We have a 2-cost, 2k blocker. Simple enough. I'm going to put this at a B tier because it's a blocker. B for blocker. Blockers are good. Oimo and Kashi, an 8k for 6 vanilla. It's a good card. It's actually a threat. I'm putting this at threat. I think I put Kuro at threat. This also belongs in the same tier. If I did not put any more 8k for 6-cost cards in A tier, oops. Just get this if you can, and you're going to be able to. It's a common, so this is probably one of the best commons you can get. These will win you games. Orlumbus is a 5k for 4. Activate main once per turn. Give up to one of your opponent's characters -4 cost during this turn, and trash 2 cards from the top of your deck. Then KO one of your Dressrosa type characters. I'm going to say that, like I've said with all the other 4-cost for 5, it's playable. It's C tier. The effect here is not good, though. You're never going to use the effect. Yats is a on play, up to one of your Dressrosa type characters can also attack active characters during this turn. It's a 1-cost for 1k body. However, it's a 2k counter, so yeah, include this in your deck. It's playable. Once again, always include 2ks. Next, we have Cavendish, a 6k for 5. It is the effect is Dawn ×1. This character can also attack active characters. When attacking, you may rest your leader, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 1 or less, then trash 2 cards from the top of your deck. I think this card is actually a pretty good card, simply because you're able to attack active characters with it. You're not going to be wanting to use the second half of it ever, but the first half is really useful because you're swinging in for basically 7, and your opponent might not be able to gain momentum if you do that. So I'm putting this at B. It's a good card. Next, we have Kyros, which is a 5k for 3. If this character would be KO'd, you may rest your leader or Corrida Coliseum instead. And on play, if your leader is Rebecca, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with the cost of 1 or less, then trash 1 card from the top of your deck. I think that this card is playable because it's a 5k for 3. You can also use the first half of the effect if you so choose. It's kind of a weird one if you would want to choose to use it. I don't recommend it, but you could. You could rest your leader in order to protect this if you haven't swung with your leader already. So therefore, it's a C, it's a playable, just because of the stat line. Next, we have Sabo. Sabo is a 6k for 5 blocker with on play, none of your characters can be KO'd by effects until the start of your next turn. Then draw 2 cards and trash 2 cards from your hand. I think this card is an A tier card. You're going to want to include this in your deck if you see it. It's a really strong blocker that can swing in. On top of it, it allows you to draw 2 cards, trash 2. So basically get rid of the worst cards in your hand and then get at 2 other cards for it. Replace those worst cards in your hand with 2 better ones. It has a 1k counter, and also none of your characters can be KO'd by effects until the start of your next turn, which could be relevant. I don't know how many KO effects we've come across or we've seen, but it could be relevant. So yeah, I'm putting this in an A tier card. Next up, we have Stussy. Stussy, what a name. So it's a 3k for 2. On play, look at 3 cards from the top of your deck and play up to 1 character with a type including CP other than Stussy and a cost of 2 or less. Then trash the rest. This is non-playable. It's an F tier. Suleiman, which is another 4k for 3. Let's see the effect here. On play and when attacking, if your leader has the Dressrosa type, give up to one of your opponent's characters -2 cost during this turn. Then trash 1 card from the top of your deck. The stat line's barely playable, and also the effect is also barely playable. It's like C tier. It's not F tier quite yet because you can use this, but I'm gonna put it at C tier. Like, I'm not happy about it though, like all the other ones. Chinchou, which is a 6k for 5. Dawn ×1. When this character battles and KOs your opponent's character, draw 2 cards and trash 2 cards from your hand. I think this is actually kind of cool. It's a good card because it can swing at something for 7. You're incentivized to KO your opponent's characters, and it also allows you to cycle. So yeah, I say this is a good card. Next, we have Trafalgar Law, which this is a really weird card for me, only because this is like the face of the set Kingdoms of Intrigue, and it's a 7k for 5 vanilla. I would assume that because this card's artwork is like all over the boxes and the packs, that this card would be more impactful, but it's not. However, that being said, it's a very good card. I put it at B tier, towards the top end of B. If it was a 6 cost 8k body, you know where those go. A tier, baby. Haruden, which is a 7k for 6. Activate main, you may rest your leader, give up to one of your opponent's characters -4 cost during this turn. This card is, I'm going to put it towards the end of B. It's like a good card because of the actual stat itself. The effect you don't care to use, but the actual stats are fine. 7k swing is still really good, especially if you're going second. Sometimes your curve can be a little awkward. Maybe you don't see the 8k body for 6 and you have this. You can play this at that time, and it's still a good threat. Also, it has a 1k counter on it. So yeah, it's B, but towards the end of it. Next, we have Bart, which Bart is a 3 cost for 3k body blocker and also 2k counter. I think this is a really solid card. I'm going to put this at B tier. If you see this card, you're happy because you have options on it. You can either use it as a 2k or you can use it as a blocker. Both options are great. Next, we have the Monkey D. Luffy, which is the 7 cost for 7k body. This character can also attack active characters. Activate main once per turn. You may return 7 cards from your trash to the bottom of your deck in any order. Set this character as active. Then this character will not become active during your next refresh phase. I think that this card is an A tier. It's extremely strong. It's a big threat. I don't necessarily know if it's quite S tier level. The fact it can attack active characters maybe makes it almost a bomb. However, the stat line of 7k on a 7 cost body, that kind of sucks a little bit. It's a little expensive for the actual stat line. However, the effect really pays off for all of it. So I'm putting it towards the top of A. It's not quite a bomb for me, but it's almost there. Next, we have Leo. On play, you may rest 1 leader. If your leader has the Dressrosa type, KO up to one of your opponent's characters at the cost of 1 or less, then trash 2 characters on the top of your deck. F tier, it's not playable. Next, we have Rebecca, which is a 2k body for 1. On play, look at 3 cards from the top of your deck. Reveal up to one Dressrosa type character other than Rebecca and add it to your hand, then trash the rest. I think this is also an F tier simply because you're not going to really be diving too far into one archetype in a pre-release event. If you do, then this might be okay, but I don't think it's playable. F tier. Gum Gum King Kong Gun, a 3-cost event which says main up to one of your Dressrosa type characters gains plus 6,000 power. Then if you have 15 or more cards in your trash, that card gains double attack during this turn. This card is nuts in constructed, but I don't think it's amazing here simply because you're not going to be able to get the effect off. The trigger's okay, draw 3 cards and trash 2, so you're gaining 1, but you're relying on the trigger there. I don't think this is very playable, so I'm going to put it at F tier simply because you don't want to bank on it being a trigger in life. If you draw into it, it's like, damn it, why did I get this card? Truno Bastardo is the next event card. It is a 4-cost event which says main, choose up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less and KO it. If you have 15 or more cards in your trash, choose up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 6 or less instead of a character with a cost of 4 or less. This is a good card. This is a B tier card. It's a solid removal, basically a jet pistol. However, it doesn't care about the power, so it can handle a 4-cost for 6. It can also handle a 6-cost for 8k body later on in the game. Yeah, I think this is a good card. It's B tier. We have Barrier, which is a 1-cost event counter, which says up to one of your leader or character cards gains plus 2,000 power during this battle. Then if you have 15 or more cards in your trash, that card gains an additional plus 2,000 power during this battle. And its trigger says draw 2, trash 1 from your hand. I think this is a good card. It's very situational to get like the rad beam effect off of it. 15 cards in your trash is a little hard to get if you're not trying to do it. However, if you get there, then yeah, this is really good, especially when you get there. It'll be late game, so this will definitely have like rad beam effect. The trigger effect is fine. I think you might want to consider running this. I think it's playable, maybe middle of the pack, or maybe towards the top. If you're trashing your cards though, definitely add this to your deck. Corrida Coliseum, if your leader has a Dressrosa type, your Dressrosa type characters can also attack characters on the turn in which they are played. So it gives your Dressrosa type characters rush. F card, it is a stage that you're not going to want to play. All right, moving on to yellow, we are here with Otama, which is a 1-cost, 0k body. On play, add up to one of your opponent's animal or smile type characters with a cost of 3 or less to the top of your opponent's life cards face up. This is really strange. So yeah, this could be good if you go against that type, but you're not. So F tier. Toko, a 0-cost, or sorry, 0-cost. I wish it was 0-cost. 0k body for 2-cost. On play, you may trash 2 Land of Wano type cards from your hand. If you have 1 or less life cards, add 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life cards. F tier. This is not good. Olin, which is a 7k body for 7. Also treat this card's name as Charlotte Linlin according to the rules. And it also has trigger, which if you have 1 or less life cards, play this card. I think this is an include if you see it. I think it's okay. I would put it towards maybe a higher end of C, lower end of B. For the sake of this, though, I'm going to put it at C tier because it's essentially is a 7k vanilla, right? Which you have to pay 7 for. Not very fond of that. Next, we have Capone. We have a 3-cost, 3k body, which says trigger. Up to one of your opponent's leader or character cards cannot attack during this turn, and it also has 2k on it. I think this card is very good. It is a B tier. It can save you games if it's the last card in life, which sometimes it might be. The chances are it could be, you know? You never know. And if a kid's going for lethal and swings in, ooh, and you're able to stop it, that's great. If it's in your hand, it's a 2k. Yeah, this is a good card. Next, we have Carmel, which on your turn, on play, draw 1 card. I think this is a good card. I actually am going to put it in B tier, and people might disagree with this. The reason I put it in B tier is it's a VV effect on a body. So yeah, it's a really awful body, but the body is still a body that you might find useful to swing in later. Like you could stack Dawn on it 1 turn and swing 11. Yeah, that might be something, right? It draws you a card, so it replaces itself. And also the trigger allows you to draw a card by playing the card. Plus it has a KO up to one of your opponent's characters that cost 2 or less. It could be a blocker, right? This card can do quite a few things, and I don't think it's that bad. So I'm going to put it in B. Next, we have Kinemon, is a 6k body for 6. Activate main once per turn. You may pay 1 Dawn. You may add 1 card from the top or bottom of your life cards to your hand. Set this character as active. I think this is a good card. You're able to reset it at the end. You can swing in with it and then restand it. And then you're also drawing a card essentially by taking it from your life. Don't think this is horrible. So yeah, I'm going to put it at a B tier. Next up, we have Hiyori, which Hiyori is a 0 cost for 2. On play, up to one of your Land of Wano type leader or character cards gains 1,000 power during this turn, and it's a trigger. Play this card. I'm going to put it at F tier. There's no real reason to run this card, I don't think. We have Sanji, which is a 5k for 4. Oh, gotta love these, right? Actually, this one I do love because it's a blocker. So that's automatically a better card. And on top of that, you can trigger it from life and play it by discarding 1 card from your hand. I will put this... Oh, I want to put it in A tier. You know how I wanted to put the Luffy in the S tier, but I put it in the top of A. I want to put this in A tier, but I'm going to put it at the top of B. I don't think it's quite like... It won't end games for you, or it won't really change up the momentum for your opponent that much. It's very useful, and you want to see this card, and it's amazing to come out of life. I'm going to put it at the top of B, though. It's like a real good B. We have Charlotte Amande. It is a 2k counter, which also has activate main once per turn. You may trash 1 card with a trigger in your hand. Rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 2 or less. The effect doesn't matter. It's a 2k C. Next up, we have Bavaroy, which is a 4k body for 3. Yet again, Dawn -1. If you have less life cards than your opponent, this character gains plus 1,000 power. And also has a trigger, which you may trash 1 card from your hand and play this card. I think it's playable. I think it's a good playable in the sense that it gets stats the longer the game goes on, and you can also play it from life. So yeah, I might want to include this if I see it. I actually might want to include it. Pero Sparrow, an 8k body for 6. Yes, please sign me up. Absolutely, it is a threat. It's A tier. Moscato, which is a 4k body for 3. Dawn ×1. This character gains Banish. And you can also trash 1 card from your hand if it comes out of life to play it. I think it's a solid card. I think it kind of falls in line with Bavaroy. It's a good card that gains stats, and you can play it for free. I'm going to include it if I can. If there's like room for it, I might want to include it. The Banish is a good stat line. Yeah, I don't think this is bad. Tonoyasu, which is a 2k for 2. Activate main. You may trash this character up to one of your Land of Wano type leader or character cards. Gains plus 3,000 power during this turn. You might want to run like the Yamato yellow leader, which could be interesting in like a pre-release, and this could be okay there. But if you're not running it, there's no reason to include it. So yeah, F tier. Next, we have Pound, which is a 3k for 3 blocker. On KO, add up to one of your opponent's characters with the cost of 3 or less to the bottom or top of your opponent's life cards face up. I'm going to put it at a B tier because it's a blocker with kind of an interesting ability. I would likely just not use the ability. However, could if you really want to. The main important thing here is that it is a blocker. Hera is a 5 cost for 3k body. Activate main. You may trash one of your homies type characters other than this character and rest this character and set up to one of your Charlotte Linlin characters as active. And the trigger is play this card. It is an F tier for me. Do not play this card, actually. The trigger should be do not play this card because I don't want to play this card. We have Yamato, which is a 9k body for 9. On play, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of equal to or less than the total of your and your opponent's life cards. Then if you have 1 or less life cards, add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life cards. I think this is a bomb. I consider this a bomb because it has a couple of things going on for it. One, it's a really strong stat of 9k. Secondly, you're able to KO up to 1 character based off of the amount of life you and your opponent have. So you can plan around that. If you want to get rid of something, oftentimes it'll be probably something a little smaller, but you could. I've seen people KO a character that was like up to 6, or even like 5 is just usually around the whereabouts of where you'll see this. But even then, gaining a life if you are at 1 or less is really strong. That changes the game a lot. So yeah, I'm going to put this at a bomb. Rabion is a 3k body for 2, which just is a straight up vanilla. And it says play this card for the trigger. It's all right in Zoro, but I would not really look to include it, to be quite honest. Yeah, because if you think about it, you play this on 2. If you're going second, you play this on 2, and then you go, okay, next turn, what I'm going to do? Put 2 Dawn on this and swing 5. Then that means I'm not able to play my 4-drop. So yeah, don't do this. Don't play this card. F tier. Randolph is a 7k body for 5. Big vanilla. I'm putting it at a B tier. It is a strong card. You want to put these in your deck. Gun Madoki is the first event card we have, which is a 1-cost event. Says main, you may add 1 card from the top or bottom of your life cards to your hand. Up to 1 of your Land of Wano type characters gains double attack during this turn. And the trigger is up to 1 of your leader or character cards gains 1,000 power during this turn. I don't think it's really playable. If you're playing Yamato, you might want to include this, like I said, for one of the other cards that is Land of Wano type. There's also other Land of Wano leaders that you could run this in. Maybe it's all right in those, but if you're not running those, don't play it. F tier. Diablo Jambe Jo Shoot, which is a 3-cost counter event, which up to 1 of your leader or character cards gains plus 6,000 power during this battle. Then, if you or your opponent have a total of 4 or less life cards, KO up to 1 of your opponent's characters with a cost of 2 or less. I think this is a good card. And also the trigger is draw 1 card. It replaces itself. I'm putting it at B. Heavenly Fire, which is a 1-cost event. Main, add up to 1 of your opponent's characters with a cost of 3 or less to the top or bottom of your opponent's life cards face up. And it has a trigger. You may add 1 card from the top or your bottom of your life cards to your hand. Add up to 1 card from your hand to the top of your life cards. I think it's not really playable here, to be quite honest. I don't think I would want to play this. I'm going to put it at F tier. There's not really a reason to play it, unfortunately. And then finally, we have the 2 secret rares of the set. We have the Vivi, which is a 4k body for 7. Excuse me. And all of your red characters with a cost of 3 or more, other than this character, gain Rush. All of your red characters, which usually it doesn't matter the color in pre-release because you're not really color locked. However, if a card specifies that a certain color gets an effect, then that is when something becomes color locked. So if you're running all red, sure, go for this, I guess. But no, unfortunately, this is not a playable card. It is an F tier. And then to round us all out, we have Don Quixote Rocinante, which is an 8k body for 8. Opponent's turn, if this character is rested, your active characters with a base cost of 5 cannot be KO'd by effects, and then on play, you may rest this character, play up to 1 green character card with a cost of 5 from your hand. I think it's a good card because it's an 8k body. If you get it, you might be able to play it. You're likely not going to be using the effects at all because 1, it's color locked to green, and 2, there's not like a lot of effects that are going to be KOing something, and you might not have a lot of 5-drops. It says a cost of 5, which means that it has to be 5. It can't be 5 or less. So that's very specific here. The actual stat line itself, if you're not like fortunate enough to get some of the bigger stat lines like a Kaido or like a Doflamingo, this is a good card to run instead because it's still an 8k swing at the end of the day, even if it does cost 8. So yeah, I'm going to put it at B tier. So yeah, that rounds up the full review of what I think you should include in your deck if you come across for pre-release for Kingdoms of Intrigue. Like I said, if you found this useful, please make sure to sub to the channel because this video did take a little bit of time, and if you guys enjoy it, I might look to do more of these every set when they come out, because honestly, it's nice to go through and read all of the cards and just kind of know what they do before I go play. So yeah, this is a good way for me to do a review, and hopefully you guys got something from it as well. If you guys made it to the end of the video, really appreciate you because I know this is a long one. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to catch you in the next one.